Thanks for this opportunity to remember and to pay tributes to Balagopal Garu. I'm here mainly because of that. Frankly, I've been just too involved in the SIR business in Bihar, and I have no business to be here in Hyderabad today, except for the memory of Balagopal Garu, and just to pay tribute to him. When we use these words like nation building, somehow in this country, either building buildings and giving money to contractors has become nation building. Who builds how many buildings? Or somehow we assume that people who sit on big chairs and have large designations, they are the ones who are building nations. I have always believed that nation building is a work which is carried down outside secretariats, often on the street, often in very small groups. And when I think of nation builders of this country, I think of people like Balagopal Garu. These are the true nation builders. I'm grateful to you for all these banners, most of these about Gaza. I'm truly grateful because one day, if not today, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years later, someone will ask us, this is what was happening in Gaza in 2024-25. What were you doing? We can say, well, I couldn't have done anything. I was sitting in India that was so much far from Israel and Palestine. But they would still say, but you could have at least opened your mouth. Bol ke lab azad hai tere. We could have spoken. And I constantly, every day, as I look at one more news of killings, and latest is recolonization in the name of liberation and peace in Gaza. Every day I ask myself, and when I decide, no more tweet on Gaza, how often can I tweet, how often can I write on this question? I always ask myself, someone will ask you, why did you not speak every single day? So thank you, my friends, for all these banners that you have put up. Just to say that our conscience was alive when the biggest massacre, genocide of our times was taking place. I'm here to speak about something very, very specific, which is the assault on India's electoral democracy. I'm not going to make a general observations about all that is happening with constitution and democracy in India. Someone should, all of us collectively should do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to speak about 3 specific instances that are happening in front of our eyes. And we do not put those 3 together and look at the big picture. I also did not do that initially. But much later it struck me that those 3 things put together actually make a design. There is an architecture. And that is what I thought I should present to you. Those 3 things that I'm going to speak to you are one nation, one election, delimitation, and SIR. These 3 things look like 3 weird, quixotic, Tughlaqi designs that this government has. And when they came first, I also reacted to each of these by saying, this is Tughlaqi. This is a medicine that is in search of a disease. This makes no sense. They've lost their mind. But later on, I realized that actually it does make sense. This is a perfect way of completely undermining electoral democracy in this country. These three things put together would change the character of electoral democracy in India. I'm using the word electoral democracy in a very limited sense, because democracy in a deeper sense is something where I think it's very hard now to call it India a democracy in any deeper sense. But I'm using the word electoral democracy in a very minimalistic sense. Countries where elections take place, where people get to vote whoever they want to vote for, and where ruling party has a chance of losing the election. A chance. In that minimalist sense, I'm speaking about electoral democracy. And these three initiatives of the government being proposed by Modi government are actually, it's an architecture which is designed to guarantee that electoral democracy will always produce the desired outcomes. Okay, but let me start with the beginning. I've been told that speaking English is all right here, that I need not switch much to Hindi, that in any case Hindi will compound the problems instead of solving it, because I can't speak Telugu anyway, so I'll just stick to English. So let me start from the beginning. Let me start with 2024 Lok Sabha election. India was already what is called a competitive authoritarian state. We should not speak about democracy and dictatorship as two possible alternatives, because most countries in the world today do not fall in any of these two categories. Now even America does not fall in any of these two categories. So what we have in the world are hybrid regimes, which have some elements of democracy and some elements of authoritarianism. India before 2024 parliamentary election was already a competitive authoritarian state. What does it mean? It means a country which in between elections is like a dictatorship, but during the election there is a little episode of democracy. Election is episodic. Democracy is an episodic thing. And there is some chance of the ruling party losing the election. The chances are not zero. Compare it, this is a serious distinction. Compare it with Russia, for example. Russia holds elections, but chances of Putin losing that election are zero. In India, chances of BJP losing some elections are not zero. So in that sense, we had a competitive authoritarian state. Authoritarian in between election with some element of competition, which is not fair, but where the scales are not 0 to 100, it is 20 to 80 or some such thing, there is a chance. That is what India was. What was the 2024 election all about? 2024 was not an election. It was not a parliamentary election. It looked like a parliamentary election. It was presented like a parliamentary election. But in its essence, 2024 Lok Sabha election was a plebiscite. What is a plebiscite? Plebiscite is a voting in which you are asked to vote on a subject, on one sentence. You are asked to vote in favor of or against one proposition. should UK exit European Union, Brexit, yes or no? That's a plebiscite. So 2024 election, while we thought we were choosing our members of parliament and so on and so forth, actually we were voting on a plebiscite. And the plebiscite was on what was called Modi ji ki guarantee. What does it mean? It meant we were being invited to vote on whatever Modi ji has done for the last 10 years and whatever he may do for the next few years. Do you approve? Do you not approve? That is what the election was all about. In the language of property dealing, which is probably more accessible these days than the language of democracy, there is something called general power of attorney. In Hyderabad, you'd be familiar with this stuff. So when you give general power of attorney to your house, you basically wash your hands of the house. Tumne jo karna hai kar lo. Technically, I have not sold, but it's as good as sold. So basically, Modi ji wanted a general power of attorney from the people of India about whatever he was to do with India. This is what 2024 was. Or to put it technically, 2024 was to inaugurate India's transition from a competitive authoritarian state to an electoral autocracy. What is an electoral autocracy? Electoral autocracy is what you have in Russia, where it's plain autocracy, but for the name's sake, they would hold a few elections. But everyone knows what the result of that election is. So we were about to make that transition. And 2024 election and the whole thing of changing the constitution was actually to get popular endorsement for India's shift to electoral autocracy. This is why 2024 was such an important election for India. And what happened, the beauty of plebiscite, and that's why BJP's whole thing of 400 par. BJP knew they were not getting 400 par. The target was, if BJP gets even one seat more than the number of seats they got in 2019, then BJP will come back and say, people of India are with us, people of India accept everything, people of India endorse it. We would have witnessed a constitution change, we would have witnessed many, many changes, we would have witnessed a formal transition of India into an electoral autocracy. What happened in the election? Something funny happened. BJP managed everything. They managed the election machinery, they managed the election commission, they managed the media, they managed money, but they could not manage the public of India. That is the problem. And as it happened, the trouble with plebiscites is this, that the answer is either yes or no. There is no third answer. So while BJP came back to power, they managed a majority in the election, they managed a majority enough to form a government, but the answer of the plebiscite was no. 240 meant no in that plebiscite. This is what the real issue was. So BJP is in power. So you win an election and you lose a plebiscite. What do you do? This is where the entire design that I'm talking to you about comes into play. So someone in BJP sits down and says, okay, we managed everything. We could not manage the public of India. Why did we not manage it? I don't know who that person is. I don't know if it's Mr. Modi or if it's Mr. Shah or someone else thinking on their behalf. But someone sat somewhere and said, we have 3 problems in this country. Place, time, and sections of society. There are three obstacles that BJP faces in its quest for permanent hegemony of Indian electoral democracy. What are those three problems? One is there are regions of this country which are not inclined towards the BJP. BJP occasionally gets some seats there. Maybe they can get more than they are getting right now, but they are not permanently inclined towards the BJP. So BJP may get more seats from Bengal, but Bengal is not Gujarat, and Bengal is not going to become Gujarat. BJP may get a seat or two in Tamil Nadu, but Tamil Nadu is not Maharashtra. Tamil Nadu is not Rajasthan. So there is a regional problem. There are regions of this country where BJP is permanently at disadvantage. That's one problem for the BJP. Second problem is that of time and calendar. Elections in this country are held in a way that every 6 or 8 months you have some major election coming up. You have Bihar now. 6 months later you would have Bengal, Assam, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. Within a year you would have Uttar Pradesh and Bihar and Punjab. So every year you have an exam. And sometimes you fail in the exam. A, you have to work hard for the exam. And second, you fail once in a while. And in any case, you have to be constantly anxious about doing the things so as to keep public in good humor. You have to keep public in mind. That's a problem for BJP. Because public is a serious problem. That's the second problem. The third problem is that there are some sections of society who are either hostile or not permanently friendly to BJP. Of course, the minorities, but even beyond the minorities, the bottom of the pyramid, if India is a pyramid, the top triangle of that pyramid is in BJP's pocket. They don't have to worry about it for the next 20 years. The bottom of the pyramid, especially the bottomest layer, is a source of problem. It's not that BJP doesn't get vote from them. BJP gets their votes. But it's not a vote जो होता है ना दिल से दिया हुआ vote नहीं है मैं ठीक है इस बार दे दिया. But if you ask those people, they would say, नहीं हमारी पार्टी नहीं है, वोट तो दे दिया लेकिन मेरी पार्टी नहीं है. They do not trust BJP, or even when they vote BJP. So, please remember, after 2024, BJP realizes that changing the constitution from the front door is not possible. Making an attempt to change the constitution from the front door with an announcement that we are going to change the constitution doesn't work. It'll, they have burnt their fingers. They've realized it doesn't work. So what do? You change the architecture of institutions. How do you change it? You take care of these three problems. It's much better to state these problems in Hindi and Telugu maybe. So the problem is Desha, Kala, Patra. These are the three problems for BJP. Desha is space and region, Kala is calendar and time, and Patra is sections of society who are not aligned with BJP. Alright, so my basic proposal, my basic argument before you today is that these three schemes are meant to take care of these three problems. One nation, one election is to take care of the problem of Kala and the calendar. Delimitation is to take care of the problem of region and space. And SIR is to take care of the problem of sections of society who are not aligned with the BJP. So this is the one-line summary of what I am going to say. But since I have some more time, allow me to speak about 5 minutes each on each of these three, and what they are saying, and why this actually constitutes a serious change in the architecture of our electoral democracy. Let me begin with one nation, one election. What are we told? For everything, BJP has lovely excuses. One nation, one election, what are we told? We are told that, look, we have too many elections in our democracy, and too many elections are causing a policy paralysis for the government. And in any case, we are spending so much, the nation is spending so much money on elections. In order to solve all of this, let us hold one election in 5 years. On the same day you vote for parliament, the same day you vote for assembly, and if they were to have their way, on the same day you would also vote for your panchayats. In one vote you vote for everything. Although that's not technically the proposal, because they've realized that the third one is very hard to do. But in principle, that's what they want. And we are told it's such a nice thing. And such is the level of political illiteracy among the educated classes of this country, that so many people get charmed by this stupid idea. This is easy, it's comfortable. I keep asking, easy for whom? Please think about it. Please remember, the BJP, which is saying that this country should, all the states and the Lok Sabha should have election on one single day or occasion, is not willing to hold elections of Haryana and Maharashtra together. Please remember, elections to Haryana Assembly and Maharashtra Assembly should have taken place together. There was no legal reason to separate them. And the same party which is telling you that the whole country should hold elections together did not want to hold these two states together. Why? Because some money had to be distributed in Maharashtra, and it was not fully suitable. This is it. So please forget that it has anything to do with country's welfare. And as far as the expenditure on elections is concerned, I can tell you, the official Sarkari expenditure on elections is much smaller than one single scam that takes place in the state of Telangana. Your Polavaram Dam or whatever, all these things. The amount of bribery that has changed hands in any of these major water projects, this will be 5 times more than what the entire country spends on a Lok Sabha election. So please don't tell me it's about saving money. And administrative convenience, you tell me, sitting in Telangana, how often do you feel the disturbance of elections? Well, one, when assembly elections take place in Telangana, and second time when Lok Sabha elections take place. So in 5 years, your government is interrupted only twice. So who has a problem? They say, no, the central government has a problem. What is the problem? They can't take decisions. I said, but it so happened that in the week in which one nation, one election scheme was announced, at that moment Haryana elections were taking place. At that moment, the model code of conduct was in operation in Haryana, and in that very week, Modi government had announced a 1 lakh crore scheme for the farmers of the country, including Haryana. I said, where is the policy paralysis? You do what you want to do anyway. There is no formal rule, there is no informal rule. What's the problem? That's not the problem. The problem is, as I said, one, that the government has to bother about winning elections, especially an authoritarian government. In 21st century, authoritarian governments do not come and say, democracy is suspended, there is martial law, there is censorship. in 21st century, everything is smart. Phones are smart, children are smart, dictators are also smart. No one comes and says, I am going to suspend democracy. Every dictator in 21st century constantly invokes the people. People want it. In the name of the people of Russia, the people of India. Murder of democracy in 21st century always takes place in the name of the people and constantly needs popular endorsement. So, the problem really is that the government, an authoritarian government, needs popular endorsement and fears a rejection every 10 months or every 8 months. This is the real problem which they want to solve. And there is another thing, which is, if Lok Sabha and Assembly elections are held on the same day, the party which dominates Lok Sabha elections will get slight traction in the Assembly elections also. Just imagine if Telangana elections were held on the same day, Assembly elections and the parliamentary elections were held the same day, what would be the result? I don't know exactly the result, but I am absolutely sure BJP would have got slightly more seats in Assembly than it got in the actual elections. Just think of Odisha. Odisha had simultaneous elections to Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha. Mr. Naveen Patnaik was indifferent about the Lok Sabha election. He said, "Inko jeet lene do, BJP ko." And he was supremely confident about Vidhan Sabha election. He thought, "Main to aa hi raha hu, inko Lok Sabha lene do." But what happened? Because the elections were held on the same day, because BJP was sweeping the Lok Sabha election, it pulled up their performance by 4 to 5%. And against all expectations, BJP actually got a majority in Odisha Assembly. This would not have happened if both the elections were separated even by 1 month. It would have not happened. So now you can see why BJP wants one nation, one election. One nation, one election is not a response to any real problem. Because if this is a problem, I said, look, there is a simple solution if you really want a solution, which is the Constitution gives the Election Commission the authority that if 2 state elections are to happen within 6 months, Election Commission can club them. I said, if you are particularly keen, expand that window into 1 year. Instead of 6 months, make it 1 year. Election Commission would be able to club it. But that's not the thing. Please remember, in our country in the last 10 years, we have an entirely new phenomena, which I call medicine in search of a disease. Normally, you have disease which is in search of a medicine. What would be the correct medicine for this new disease? But what we have are new medicines which are in search of a disease. This is exactly what Notebandi was. Demonetization was exactly this. First you had an injection, and then the doctor is thinking about what disease would this injection cure. First he tells you it's headache, then you said, I've never had a headache in my life. No, it will cure your stomach ache. But Baba, I have no problem with my stomach, but you know, your skin is glowing, isn't it? This is what exactly, how ridiculous as it might look, this is what demonetization was all about. And this is exactly what one nation, one election is all about. It's a solution to a non-existent problem. Non-existent for the country, but for a real problem for the BJP. That's one. Let me shift to delimitation, which has not happened. Officially, it has not been announced. But there is one clear indication. The census of India is taking place in year 2026. Why is it taking place in 2026? It was due in 21, but there was COVID, fair enough. 22, there was a bit of COVID still left. Okay, other countries had it. You say you can't hold it, all right. Why not 23? Why not 24? Why not 25? Now, if you want a clue, the clue is Constitution Amendment. There is a delimitation of this country has been frozen till 2026. And the Constitution Amendment which was held in 2001 said that it can be revised only in or after a census held in 2026. Census of 2026 was mentioned in a constitutional amendment. At that time, people like me thought, all right, 26 means 31, because census is always held either in 21 or 31 or whatever. But BJP is smarter. So the census is being held in 2026 so that it would pave the way for a constitutional requirement to carry out delimitation. What is the constitutional provision? In the first one, BJP has a pretext. In this delimitation, BJP does not need a pretext, because the Constitution of India says that every 10 years there should be delimitation. It has been frozen for the last 50 years. The freeze is over in 2026. And BJP would say, well, the Constitution says one person, one vote, one value. And in order to do so, we must redistribute the number of seats in the parliament by the population. This is the normal democratic principle. So BJP can invoke a perfect democratic principle. Just think of it. An authoritarian government which invokes perfect democratic principle. Whatever is useful is good. What would be the impact of delimitation? I'm sure it's known here, but just for everyone's benefit, we know what the population of the country will be in 2026. The actual census will take place, but we have decent projections and we know exactly what, it will be a few lakhs here and there, but we know exactly what the population will be. If the country's Lok Sabha seats are to be redistributed as per the census of 2026, the projected population, here is what the impact will be. Kerala from 20 seats will come to 12. From 20 to 12. Tamil Nadu, 39 to 31. Andhra and Telangana put together, because that's not separated in the census, from 42 to 34. 8 seats would be lost. In all probability, Andhra comes from 25 to 21 and Telangana from 17 to 30. Karnataka loses 2 seats, Odisha loses 3 seats, Bengal loses 4 seats, Punjab loses 1 seat. Do you see a pattern? Is there a pattern to this? And the funny thing is that BJP is not designing it. It is a perfect democratic population driven pattern, which is to say, almost every Hindi speaking state will gain seats, almost every non-Hindi speaking states will lose seats. And in the parliament, where the Hindi speaking states currently have only 226 seats in the parliament out of 543, their share will go up to 259, almost a majority. And if you put some Hindi speaking seats in Mumbai and in some other places together, it is Hindi speakers, or let's say extend it to Gujarat, which is for all practical purposes an extension of the North Indian Hindi heartland belt. They have a majority in the Lok Sabha. You don't need the south of India now if this delimitation is carried out. So you see the pattern. What it does, BJP would say, well, we are meeting democratic requirements, population requires it, etc. I have written very extensively about it, and it is correct that it is an imperative of democracy that population shares should be reflected by and large, barring some exception. But in the Indian case, I have argued, and I don't want to spend too much time here on that. I think we are facing an exceptional situation in India, where 4 fault lines of India happen to coincide. We have a geographical fault line of north-south. We have a linguistic fault line of Hindi-speaking states and non-Hindi-speaking states. We have a political fault line of BJP-dominated states and non-BJP-dominated states. And we have an economic fault line of very poor states of the country versus relatively better off states of the country. If you draw all these 4 lines, they do not perfectly coincide. Some states of the west go from here to there. Some states of the east also shift from here to there. However, all the 4 lines that you draw, South India is always on this side of the line, and Hindi-speaking North India is always on the other side of the line. That is the real danger. In a country, for a long-term thinking about national unity and integrity, if you have fault lines in a country which cut across each other, there is no problem. That's a very healthy fault line, it should be encouraged. But if you have fault lines which coincide with each other or more or less coincide, that is a very serious danger to long-term stability of the nation. And therefore, I have argued that in this instance, the only correct way would be to freeze delimitation forever. I have made a written proposal to say that whatever share in Lok Sabha different parts of the country had in 1971, it should be frozen for the rest of our life. It should be written into the Constitution. Because there is an unwritten, unspoken North-South contract built into the foundations of the Indian Union. All social contracts are unspoken. No social contract is ever written. This is also a federal contract which is written into the foundations of India. And my fear is that in order to gain short-term electoral advantage, BJP might end up breaking this contract, which would be to the long-term detriment of India's national unity. That is delimitation. I have just 5 more minutes to talk about SIR. I have spoken so much about it that some of you who have read it could be bored of it already. Let me just give you the basics and complete this. What is SIR? Special Intensive Revision. All of us living outside Bihar sometimes feel, oh, Bihar voter list had a problem. Election Commission is doing something to clean it up. Some of us believe that Election Commission is doing this at the behest of the BJP. कुछ खेल कर रहे हैं, कुछ खिलवाड़ है, कुछ गड़बड़ कर रहे हैं बिहार में. That is the impression we have. I just want to propose to you that SIR is nothing of that kind. SIR is not a revision in the electoral rolls. It's not a revision of the voters list. SIR is rewriting the basic rules of who becomes a voter in this country. SIR is about changing it's a tectonic shift in the architecture of universal adult franchise. Now that might look like a very big claim, and you might wonder, Bihar mein kuch ho raha hai, why are you saying all these big things? I just want to remind you of the following. Number 1, SIR is not a Bihar specific order. The original order of Special Intensive Revision of Bihar in June 2025 clearly says it is an all India order. It is happening in Bihar first and will take place in the rest of the country later. So it is, now media is saying, oh, SIR is going to be implemented in other. But it was always written there. It's written from day one that it is going to be implemented in the country. You did not notice it, but it was there. Number two, SIR introduces three things which have never been done in this country ever in terms of voting rights. Number one, India has always been a country where you were put on the voters list by the state. You did not have to do anything in order to be on the voters list. It is called state-initiated registration. Someone comes to your house, writes your name, asks you to sign something, and your name is there on the voters list. There is another system in the world which is called individual or citizen-initiated registration, where the government says, this is the deadline, please come and fill forms. If you want to be registered, please register. If you don't come, what can I do? That is the second system. India has always been in the first system. In India, thanks to Sukumar Sen, our great and wonderful first election commissioner, which this country doesn't remember as much as it should, Sukumar Sen laid down this basic rule: we will come to your home to register you. And what is the difference? You might think, क्या फर्क पड़ता है, मैं आपके घर गया या आप जाके फॉर्म भर के आए, this is a minor technical difference. No, sir. I invite you to look at the statistics of 2024 in India and in the US. India has state-initiated register, and the US has individual-initiated registration. In US, you have to fill a form, you have to go and register yourself. In 2024, both the countries had elections, so we have data for both the countries. In India, if there were 100 adult persons in the population of India, there are 99 persons on the voters list. India's adult population was 98 crore. India's voters were 96.5 crore. In the US, if you have 100 persons who are 18 or above, only 74 were on the voters list. This is the difference between the two systems. The moment you put the onus of being on the voters list on the voter, automatically the bottom 10-20% drop out. In the US, who drops out? Homeless, black, ethnic minorities. Everyone in the world knows, the figures are there. And why is it relevant? This is exactly what the SIR has done. In the history of this country, this has never been done before. SIR said in Bihar, we'll come to your house, we'll hand you over a form. Please fill the form, please put documents, please put your photographs, please put your signatures, and return it before 25th of July. And if you do not give the form back by 25th of July, your name is automatically deleted from the voters list. And we would not call it deletion. You would not get a notice. You would not get a hearing. Because if your name is deleted, you have the right to be heard. But if you do not give your enumeration form, then there is no need to give you notice or deletion or anything of that kind. This is what has happened. So the onus of being on the voters list has been shifted from the election commission to the voters. This will have serious implications for the entire country. Wherever you take SIR, 10% people will automatically drop out. One. Second, for the first time, everyone has been asked to produce a document of eligibility. Earlier, the system was that if I have any doubt, I go to someone's house and I think, no, this boy doesn't look 18 years of age. Then I could say, please show me certificate to prove that you are 18 years old. Or, I think you don't belong to this place. Then I could say, please show me certificate that you normally reside in this place. Only on these two counts I could ask you for documents, but only in the cases of suspicion, well-grounded suspicion or objection. Otherwise, no one was asked for any documents whatsoever. What does SIR do? SIR says everyone has to give a document to prove their eligibility. Now, this automatically changes the nature, because please remember, all over the world, disenfranchisement has always been done through documentary requirements. No one in this world ever says these people will not have right to vote. No, no, no. They say you will have the right to vote. You just have to give some documents which I know you don't have. That's the way to disenfranchise. I know you don't have that document, and I'll ask you only for those documents that I know you don't have. This is exactly how the blacks were disenfranchised in the US in the 19th century. After the Civil War, they technically had the right to vote, but the entire southern states of America came up with laws which required the blacks to give property documents which they did not have. So that's the second requirement. And the third thing that the SIR has done is that it has shifted the onus of citizenship, the presumption of citizenship. So far, our law has been, and the practice has been, if I go to your house, you live in Delhi, I assume that you are an Indian citizen. My presumption is that you are a citizen of India. If someone objects to your name, then I will ask not you. I will ask that person to show me documents why you are not a citizen of India. This was a procedure so far in our country. Now, in one stroke, it has been changed, and now the presumption is, I go to your house, you live in Delhi, but I don't know, you could be a Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan, please show me your documents. So for the first time in our country's history, there is a presumption of non-citizenship. Now, these three things have happened for the first time. The Election Commission pretends that they are only carrying out an exercise which took place in 2003. The Election Commission is lying. And that is why the Election Commission did not release the document of 2003. The Election Commission said that in 2003 we had carried out this exercise in Bihar. This is only a repetition of the same exercise. So we said, all right, show us the guidelines for 2020, 2003. Election Commission did not give us. Then we filed RTI. Election Commission said RTI, and in the first appeal of RTI, they have refused to give it. But finally, last week, Prashant Bhushan got a copy of it, and he has put it in the Supreme Court. And it shows that all the three things did not happen in 2003. In 2003, enumerator came to your house. You did not file any enumeration form. In 2003, you were not asked to give any documents unless there was a very special suspicion. And in 2003, your citizenship was not checked. Actually, 2003 guidelines said that citizenship should not be checked. This is what the stipulation was in 2003. So, SIR is a method for mass disenfranchisement. What has happened in Bihar is actually only a trailer. It is a trailer because the first step of disenfranchisement happened, but after that the Election Commission got very worried. Supreme Court were watching, we were crying and shouting, and they felt that the entire SIR exercise may be delegitimized. So Election Commission gave orders कि papers check मत करो लोगों के, सबको दे दो. Don't delete anyone's name. Now you might think that's lovely. Okay, they've been checked. No, but the problem is the written order still remains the same. So there are mechanism. One is asking enumeration forms, which will automatically lead to 10-15% people dropping out, and these would always be women, migrants, labor, poor. And number two, requirement of documents, and that too such high level of documents and checking of citizenship, that would automatically lead to deletion of another 10-15% in this country. So we are witnessing the biggest exercise of disenfranchisement in the history of 21st century, not just in India. No country in the world has witnessed such a large-scale disenfranchisement exercise. So just to conclude, my submission to you is that these three schemes, which look three outlandish and weird schemes, actually put together create an architecture of sorting out the problem of Desha, Kala and Patra. All three are sorted out. Elections will happen, and the playing ground, which is already slightly uneven because of money and everything else, the playing ground will become such that you don't have to then take water to some place. Wherever you throw the water, it will flow only in one direction, namely to the BJP. You don't have to rig the EVMs. You don't have to do anything. The slope is such that votes will automatically trickle towards the BJP. This is what is happening, and this is what I call the biggest challenge to the architecture of whatever remains of democracy in our country, namely electoral democracy. That's the only thing that is left now, and that is being challenged today. And when we remember Balagopal Garu, we not only remember him, remembering him must also become a resolve to take on this challenge to our constitutional architecture. Thank you.
ఇప్పుడు ఒక ఫ్యూ క్వశ్చన్స్ తీసుకుంటారు. ఎవరన్నా క్వశ్చన్స్ అడగాలనుకుంటే అడగచ్చు. ఎనీబడి వాంట్స్ టు ఆస్క్ ఎనీ క్వశ్చన్స్? జస్ట్ ఎ ఫ్యూ.
Respected sir, just a few, three questions I have, sir, about
One topmost question.
one topmost question. Sir, how can such a complete degradation of institutions of democracy, how can it be reversed, sir, in the future?
Should I keep responding? Or maybe we'll have 3 or 4 and then more.
Any more questions?
First line.
Sir, we are always talking about the postmortem reports, but we are not talking about the vaccines. So please.
Yogendra ji, that was fantastic always. आप तेलंगाना धरती में हैं और 45 साल पहले हम लोग पूरा ये पार्लियामेंट चोरी है, ये पार्लियामेंट से कुछ नहीं होगा, पूर पीपल का पावर थ्रू गन आएगा, ऐसा सोचने वाले बहुत है इसमें. लेकिन आपके वैसे लोगों के स्पीच सुन के हम लोग चेंज हो गए इलेक्ट्रल डेमोक्रेसी के लिए. आप ऐसा काम करते हैं कि 20 साल के बाद आते हैं, आपको इंस्पायर करते हैं, इट्स गुड, बट नाउ किधर जाएगा? थैंक यू.
This what you have said in the current context makes a lot of sense to me. The reason why it's said. But I have one question to you. My question is this: urban areas is where much of the population is shifting. Urban areas are the wealth generators, and you know the argument that the wealth generators are made, saying what is my stake in this with the rural being poor and the urban being the new rich or the middle class rich or the lower class. Would you like to put that lens on and tell us what this whole thing will lead to in the context of where the wealth lies and where the numbers lie? Beyond picture.
Yeah, maybe.
Should I respond? Because the first three questions actually were the same. The thing is that BJP thinks about vaccines and we keep thinking about post-mortem. The question is, what can we do? And this is related also to the Garu's question. It is true that those of us who thought 30, 40, 50 years ago that electoral democracy is a farce may today feel, okay, I told you so. But I think they were seriously mistaken. I think in a certain kind of left thinking, we underestimated the power, the possibility, and the hold of the idea of democracy for the people. So, not engaging with democracy and democratic procedures was, to my mind, a political mistake. And those ML groups which have now started engaging have corrected that. It is by engaging with it that today we can complain. Today I can come and say electoral democracy is being twisted, distorted, precisely because I engage with it. A non-engagement would leave me with not that, without an option to do that. How do we protest? To my mind, in a democracy, if you have small issues, they can be addressed by bureaucracy and by the executive. If there are bigger issues, they can be handled by judiciary. But if there is a fundamental challenge to the very foundations of the republic, then I do not know of a single country where legislature, executive or judiciary has responded to the fundamental challenges to the republic. So you might say, so what's the answer? The answer is in the word republic. In the last instance, a republic is defended by the public. Look around yourself. That's the only solution. It's a hard solution. It's not a straightforward solution. It's not a formatted or templated solution. But in the last instance, public has to come out to defend the republic. Publics, in doing so, can take multiple forms, and the first form should always be democratic elections. Even when the ground is tilted, if there is a wave in favor of one party, that party still wins the election. A wave can still not be overturned, but normal things can be overturned. So first option, of course, is electoral democratic power of vote. Do remember 1977. Who would have imagined that Indira Gandhi could lose? That was public asserting itself to defend the republic through vote. So that is one option. There are other options that we can see in our neighborhood. I really hope and think we don't have to go to those options. But in the last instance, as I said, public has to defend the republic. Judiciary, legislature, executive cannot be relied upon to defend the fundamental challenge. Your question, sir, about rural-urban and those who control the money bags, those who control money versus those who control numbers. I think the money people have already solved that problem. The simple fact is that when democracy was inaugurated in the West and then in India, the ruling classes were very worried. Poor people are going to get votes, they are going to do what they like, what will they do to us? But while the poor people got some time to become wise, the ruling class got wise very soon. And I think ruling class all over the world has found ways of managing democracy without losing their control. And this is exactly what's happening in India. A1 and A2 do not need votes to decide every single policy of this country. And that cuts across party regimes. To my mind, the solution is that the ruling class, the corporate capital interests, they control the basic policy framework, and then the poor, the ordinary people get a 10% discount, or if they really work very hard, they get 20% discount. That is what the democratic structure today is. So I think that is unfortunately, a sorted equation, unless you have an upsurge of the kind that you had in Sri Lanka last year. That kind of thing can change the equation. Otherwise, I'm afraid it's a very settled equation. And right now, we are fighting not for changing that equation, we are fighting to regain the basics of that equation.